Hello everyone, this is Dr. Irfan Kamaruddin Andani. Today we are going to continue the topic which we started lastly, that is various bracket prescriptions in orthodontics. What is Roth? What is MBT? What is Andrews? We have already covered Andrews prescription in our last lecture, and today we are going to discuss about Roth prescription. Sir Ronald Roth invented his own bracket system, bracket prescription in 1975 or 76 after using the Andrews brackets for few years. But the question is that why did he invent his own prescription instead of continuing the Andrews brackets? What were those shortcomings he found in Andrews brackets so that he decided to invent his own? We are going to discuss all these details. So let's begin. As I told you in the last lecture that Andrews did not give a single bracket prescription. Instead, he invented multiple prescriptions, each for different cases. Like for extractions, he had different series. For crowding, depending on the severity, he had type A, B and C series. Now just imagine how difficult it was for the practitioners of that time to choose the right bracket prescription for their cases. That was the reason Ronald Roth thought to introduce a single prescription of brackets which fits best for most of the cases. And that was the reason he invented his own. He selected lower incisors brackets from S series of Andrews. He selected upper incisors bracket from C series of Andrews. He kept values of upper and lower canines at maximum because when he was using Andrews brackets, he observed that mesially tipped canines not only help in bodily movement while retraction, but they also give good canine guidance. Therefore, he kept the tip values for these teeth at maximum. Now here you can see in this slide the tip values of Andrews prescription, and you can also compare with the Roth that what were those changes which he brought into his bracket system. You can see here, beside increasing the tip values of the canines, he has reduced the tip values for premolars and molars in upper and lower arches both. And if we talk about the torque changes, he has increased the torque values for centrals and lateral incisors in the upper arch. And he has reduced the torque values of upper molars. Now let's discuss all these changes one by one with the reasoning. Regarding the increase in the torque values of the upper central and lateral incisors, the reason is the same as we discussed in the previous lecture, and it is the play in the bracket slot and overcompensation. Let me explain it again. Let's assume an extraction case in which Roth gave Andrews bracket prescription. He extracted upper fours and started to retract the incisors back. But the thing he noticed that even the heaviest wire could not stop the retroclination of the upper incisors while retraction. And the reason was play in the bracket slot. Now to compensate that, Roth increased the torque values of central and lateral incisors. Here you can see the Roth bracket with more positive torque value. The slot is facing actually downwards, so that when the wire is inserted in that bracket, it generates more couple and more control over the root. So he expected more bodily movement or translation of the incisors while retraction. Not only Roth, but you know that MBT also increased the torque values of these four incisors further, and the reason was same, for more bodily movement of the incisors while retraction. Now try to understand that why did he change the tip values of premolars and molars in upper and lower arches both. As we discussed earlier that Andrews kept the tip values of upper and lower canines on the higher side, and the reason was that he wanted to achieve bodily movement of the canine while retraction. When you insert the wire into the canine brackets, definitely you may expect some mesial movement of the crowns because of the couple production into the brackets. But is it just the mesial movement of the canine crowns? No, there is also a mesial force vector generation in the whole arch wire. When the canine crown moves mesially, they may bring posterior teeth mesially as well. Premolars and molars move mesially, especially if the wire is cinched back. In other words, you can say that due to mesial tipping of the canines, there can be anchorage loss because of that mesial force vector in the arch wire. To overcome this problem of anchorage loss of the posterior teeth, he reduced the tip values of upper and lower premolars and molars. Upper molars are uprighted as the tip values were made 0, and lower molars and premolars were distally tipped a little bit because he kept the tip values of these teeth to -1 degrees. Now when mesial force vector is generated into the arch wire because of the mesial movement of the canines, there is minimal anchorage loss because you have already compensated by tipping these teeth little bit distally. One more thing that he noticed after using Andrews brackets, that there was unwanted hanging of the palatal cusps of upper molars, leading to an unwanted interference of that cusp with the opposing tooth. To reduce that interference, he reduced the value of torque in the upper molars from -9 to -14 degrees, so that there is buccal root movement in the upper molars and there is no more interference of palatal cusp with the opposing tooth. Now to summarize all the changes Roth made in his prescription, see this slide. For upper incisors, torque values were increased for better translation of the teeth while retraction. For canines in the upper arch and lower arches, tip values were kept higher so that better translation can be achieved and better canine guidance as well. To reduce the anchorage loss, the tip values of the posterior teeth were reduced to 0 in upper arch and -1 for lower posterior teeth. And to prevent the palatal cusp hanging, torque of upper molars were increased. I hope I have successfully clarified all these changes made in Roth bracket prescription. In the next video, we will discuss the changes made by MBT in their bracket system. Till then, have a good day.